morning, everybody. Welcome back to our Croydon Business Webinar this week. I can see we already have many people joining us and more joining as we speak. So it's great to have you all with us again this morning. We're talking this morning about the road to recovery. We're talking about what, as businesses, we need to be thinking about in terms of looking ahead, whether that be around our future funding needs, whether that be around how we might deal with some of our other business practicalities, and most importantly, how as businesses in whatever sector we might need to look at what needs to be put in place to make sure our businesses can reopen and can do so safely. Obviously, we had the government announcements on Sunday, and further detail has come out since. Still not enough detail. There's still a lot of questions to be answered. And a lot of those questions will also be around how the London Borough of Croydon, the Croydon Council, is able to support and what plans we know they are putting in place in terms of how to manage our high streets, how to manage our public places, how to manage our pedestrian traffic, our cycling, our walking and our commuting traffic. Those questions are still being determined. The answers to those questions are still being determined. And today what we want to do is try and help them by giving some feedback from the business community. And we've got a great panel with us again this morning. I'm going to introduce them to you now. We have Simon Cripps. Simon Cripps is the owner of Smart Cow, digital marketing agency, but also the chair of the Purley Bid. So he is here and talking about the Purley High Street and all the businesses within the Purley Business Improvement District, their challenges and what is currently being thought about in terms of how to keep them or enabling them to reopen. We also have our other business improvement district here, New Addington. Now Ken Burgess, many of you will know Ken. Ken runs his own business in New Addington, which is still open. So he'll be able to talk to us about that experience, as well as also sharing the views of the other New Addington businesses around their thoughts about recovery. Steve Broom from Metro Bank. Steve is the manager at Metro Bank in Croydon, and we're delighted that Steve is here. The ongoing announcements around funding, around C bills or B bills or any other type of fund that obviously needs to have an acronym, he can talk to us about. And we know there are many businesses that have already accessed those, but many who are still have questions around how they can access that funding and what other things can be done to help enable their businesses to survive. Also with us this morning, Peter Bugatti. Now, Peter Bugatti is the owner of Bugatti's restaurant, Italian restaurant in the restaurant quarter. And Peter is also very active in the South Croydon Business Association that works together to help all of the businesses, a lot of whom are restaurants in that area, come together. We know that that sector has been heavily hit. It'll be really interesting to hear this morning from Peter about the plans that he's making for the reopening of Bugatti's, and more generally around that high street scenario and how those businesses are going to be able to manage as we come out of lockdown. And finally, someone who probably doesn't need any introduction to people in Croydon, Rajan Aman from Covershore Insurance. Now, Rajan was here with us when we did our very first webinar, which seems a lot longer than 7 weeks ago, but I think it was only 7 weeks ago. A lot has happened since then. Rajan can answer any queries that you might have about your insurance issues, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, what you should be paying close attention to, and can also be sharing his experience as a small business in an office environment, in a shared workspace. What does that mean for him? What is he thinking about in terms of bringing his business back into the office space, and how is he going to do that safely? So welcome to all of you, and we're very grateful that you've given up your time this morning to help with this important subject. A few housekeeping notes for those of you that have joined us. We'd really like to hear from you this morning. We pulled this panel together to really help you put your questions directly to some people. And importantly this morning, we'll be taking the findings and the thoughts from today and passing them back to the council, who I think as we speak are in a meeting talking about how they're going to reopen Croydon, which is why they're not with us today on the webinar. But we will be taking back your thoughts, concerns, feedback to them. That's going to be a very important part of what does happen, understanding what you as businesses need and require and what your concerns are. So this morning we want you to talk to us as much as possible. You can do that in a number of ways. On your taskbar on your screen, you can put a question using the Q&A button. If you put that question, that will enable me to ask that question on your behalf. If you do want to ask that question in person, you just need to raise your little virtual hand that you'll see next to your name. That will light up a blue virtual hand from me. That will tell me that you want to actually come on and ask that question directly to yourself, and we can open up your microphone and enable that to happen. So if there's something you want to comment on, something you don't agree with, some advice that you can give, please do use the facility of the Q&A. You can also chat to us virtually this morning. You all have a chat button, and using that button you can put a comment or a question to either any of the panelists or just generally to everyone who's listening, and you can also share information. So if there's a web link or something you want to recommend to people on this subject, you can do that on the chat button. So hopefully you're going to keep us really busy this morning with a lot of your questions and queries. But just to kick it off, I'm going to invite Steve from Metro Bank just to give us an update on the situation with regards to loans. Hi, Steve.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, morning. Can you tell us a little bit about what the situation currently is with the two loan schemes that are available?
Yeah, the CBIL loan scheme's been out for 3 or 4 weeks now. There was initially a lot of interest in that. Surprisingly, once people had had a look at the requirements and what the criteria and the terms of that loan were, a lot of the queries fell away because a lot of businesses weren't able to meet the criteria. I think all banks have been fully engaged on the CBIL scheme. We're seeing lots of loans going through now and lots of businesses getting helped. But they are still a little bit onerous, especially with the larger loans. The BIBL scheme's landed this now, and that is proving to be very, very popular. That started last week. I've heard lots of good stories about businesses accessing funds through that scheme very, very quickly and very, very easily. I think it's definitely a fit for purpose scheme for the smaller businesses. At Metro, we will be accredited for it this week and hopefully live next week. And unfortunately, the issue that we had as a bank personally is that we didn't have an online lending platform. So we've had to put one together in 2 weeks, and we're hopefully going live with that next week. Obviously, it still has literally been built and tested. So if all goes well, we'll be live with that next week, and we'll be helping our customers with the BIBL loan scheme. But I've heard really good things from people applying to other banks. I think that scheme is working particularly well. It is limited obviously to 50,000 or a quarter of your turnover, but I think the criteria is pretty much it's available to everyone that has a viable business and goes through the online process. So really, really positive on the lower level, the lower lend schemes.
And that is risk-free, isn't it? In that there is no liability, is that right?
In terms of liability, there is definitely a liability. It is a loan that is intended to be paid back. It's not a grant, it's a loan to be paid back. But the terms of it are very good in so much as you get 12 months capital holiday, 12 months interest covered by the government, and then a reduced interest rate at the end of it. So it's a very good scheme. But the borrowers are still liable for that money. It is a loan. One of the reasons we're able to facilitate it as an industry that much quicker is because it is 100% guaranteed. So that means the government has instructed us not to go into any great due diligence. So we don't do any credit checks. We don't do any background stuff. It is a self-cert model, really. Customers have to confirm certain criteria, and then they're able to access the funds. And because of that, it's a much, much quicker process as opposed to the CBIL scheme, which we still have to carry out full due diligence on customers, and it's partially backed by the guarantee as opposed to fully backed by the guarantee.
Okay, so that's great. Firstly, can I apologise because I incorrectly introduced you as Croydon manager, which of course you're not. You're actually the area director for Metro Bank. So I did you a disservice there. So apologies for that. You're far more important than I thought. So that's wonderful.
Based in Croydon, so I was no problem with that.
Okay, that's great. And Metro Bank is open currently on the High Street in Croydon, or North End in Croydon. What's your experience of that?
Yeah, all of our stores are open on reduced hours. So rather than 7 days a week, we're Monday to Friday, 10 till 4. It's still really busy. We haven't. It's obviously slower than normal, but there is still a lot of people out there in the High Street. A lot of people calling in. We're still opening new accounts. We're still coming. Customers have queries. They need to have access to services and funds. So we're still seeing a good flow. The social distancing is an issue, as with any shop or any business opening up. We can't have people queuing in store, so we've had to have them queuing outside, which thankfully the weather's been okay, so it's not been too bad. But we will have to continue that. As the high street opens, we will open and extend our hours longer to meet the flow and the requirement in the high street. So we will open up again at the weekends if the shops open at the weekends. So we will be dictated by guidelines.
So I guess the challenge there at the moment, you're open and you're managing your queues externally in the pedestrian area, and presumably that's fairly easy to do because there's not many other shops opening around you having to do that.
There's only Superdrug, Boots, and the food shops that are open. Nothing else is open.
The challenge would be how, as a collective of businesses on that high street area, you would then work together once more businesses start to open to manage that social distancing, which is where I'm going to go firstly to Simon from Pearly Bid. Thank you for that, Steve. Just to ask, obviously your bid area encompasses predominantly the Purley High Street, a big busy road full of lots of once upon a time busy shops. Just talk to us a little bit about how, as Purley Bid, you're looking at the challenges of reopening.
Essentially, as a bid, we've got to focus first and foremost on the safety of our businesses and people turning up to shop in our stores. And we need to be able to be demonstrating this on a daily basis to make sure that there's a confidence there that we can bring people back into the High Street and the Brighton Road and the Purley Bid area. As a bid, the benefit to our members is that we have got the sources to get certain amounts of PPE and to put in safety checks and checklists and markings and various different things to make sure that it is a very safe environment, or as safe as we can be for our visitors. Essentially, as we know, this three-stage plan is going to be quite a challenging plan. I think it's quite ambitious, the timescales that they're looking for it, and it's obviously got to be taken in with the technology that they're bringing in here. And essentially, our landscape is going to change fairly rapidly over the next few months or so.
So what are the specifics of what you're doing as a bid? You mentioned, are you sourcing PPE on behalf of businesses? Are you making recommendations? Are you doing, pavement markings? What is it that you're looking to try and do?
Tick all of the above. So literally just on this call, I just had a delivery of 2,500 PPE masks. We've got an order of various washable ones, face guards, which we're providing a certain amount to our members as part of their membership. We are also sourcing sneeze guards. We've got chalk paint for markings on the pavements. We've got a conversation with the council of how we're going to manage people going through. We've got these checklists that we can display in people's windows to say that we're adhering to the 5 procedures and pointing our members towards different things they need to do to ensure the public that they have got all the safety procedures in place that's going on there. And just things such as being able to source the floor vinyl to say keep 2 meters apart. Now, individually as a business, it could be a bit of a faff, but as we can source hundreds and hundreds at a time, we can then distribute that to our members and make sure that everyone's got this social distancing and the markers, etc., to make sure that Purley is a really safe environment for people to come. I mean, you bear in mind that the demographic of what we've got as an elderly generation, we've got to be more mindful of that than a lot of people, that it is safe and some place you can go to.
I suppose that sort of opportunity to work as a collective to understand what's going on next door, across the road, and how that might impact on what individual businesses' plans are.
Absolutely, and it's not just on the safety point of it, the financial point of it as well. So a lot of businesses misunderstood the grant system that was coming in and thought, actually, I still have to pay this back. And so just making them aware that actually you are available to this. So we certainly saved a considerable amount of businesses by us getting to the phones and calling our members to say, make sure you take this up, make sure that you apply for the loan and for the furlough and for the grants, etc. a lot of people didn't realise what's going on. I know we've had some challenges. We still have businesses 40 days on without these grants, and that's again where the bid has petitioned and lobbied the councillors, and it was raised at Cabinet on Monday that, look, we still have a certain amount of members that 40 days without these grants, and Purley as a business district has raised the awareness of that more so than above other areas. So we are certainly supporting our businesses there.
And are you aware of, are there businesses that already are not managing to survive in your high street? Are you aware of that at all? Or at the moment, is everybody, holding on in there? There
are. I mean, even some of the big names. So Laura Ashley has pulled up shop. We've got, just before this all happened, we had Cycle Republic leave. I don't know if that was COVID-19 related, but look, it's going to be challenging for everyone. And this decline, not necessarily the decline, the change of the high street over the past decade, so maybe 2 decades, is just exacerbated over this forthcoming year or so. And so we are going to be seeing a change to, look, we'll move away from a transactional high street to more of an experience-centric high street. And so it's just making sure that the businesses have got that in the model that, look, if you're transactional, make sure you've got your web presence there. Look, over the past 2 years, there's been a 900% increase in searches such as shops near me and businesses near me. So people do search locally for those businesses. So it's getting them to do that. And then there's other businesses that are looking to be more experience centric, so that you can have to turn up and participate.
Certainly this is bringing forward what was already happening in terms of a changing high street and the way people do business. That's forcing that to happen. I'm just going to quickly come back to Steve. I've got a question actually, which is around the loan scenario, which you may or may not know the answer of, but it's come from someone who's asking that banks are currently not letting self-employed people use their personal accounts to apply for a B-bill. So the bank's back loan, is that, and I think this is in relation to, maybe they're saying driving instructors, artists, carers who use their personal accounts for business. Is that something you're aware of is a problem?
Yeah, it's the scheme. The government put the scheme together, and the banks just facilitate the scheme. There is another grant or scheme for self-employed people, but the CBIL and the BBIL loans have a particular, they're aimed at supporting businesses, so limited companies, partnerships, and unfortunately self-employed fall outside of the scheme. There is another scheme for self-employed people that's out there. I think it's a grant-based system it's
part of the furlough scheme, isn't it? And I think actually it's available from today. You can actually make an application from today, and that's for people who are, as you say, self-employed and therefore don't have the relevant business status to apply for loan. But that is very much about paying them an average of their wage in lieu of them being able to earn any money. So I guess the answer is it's not a local bank decision, it's a government decision. That's how they chose to set it up. And I guess they've said all along that it can't be one size fits all. There's going to sadly be some people that fall out of all the various schemes, but they have to have a process and a system which to manage these things. But I guess come and talk to you as a bank, because there will be other things that you can be talking to them about how they manage their cash flow.
Yeah, potentially, because obviously we can still talk to people for lending outside of the government schemes. So I get that that's going to be difficult in view of the circumstances. But if anyone wanted assistance on a personal level, or as a self-employed person using a personal account, we can still talk to them. We are still open to lending to individuals or self-employed sole traders. The government may decide to change the scheme and allow people to go to self-employed people if they can put a case together. But that at the moment is two different things at the moment. So
and also you can help with advice, I'm imagining, around overdraft facilities, relaxing overdraft facility rules, or and other things that you could be offering.
Yeah, absolutely. So any lending, we'll still look at any lending outside of government schemes as a BAU process.
So I think the message that's come up actually time and time again over the last few weeks is, right now it's about communicating. It's about talking to the people that you would normally be paying money to and maybe can't, and go and talk to your bank and understand what all the options are. And I guess the message from you is that you are open on the high street. People can still walk in. You don't have to wait on the end of a telephone line for goodness knows how long before someone can answer. So, and even if they're not, and you can do that to many high street banks at the moment. Ken, I'm just going to come across to you to talk to us firstly in relation to the fact that you are a business that's open on a high street, and the impact that's having for you and how you're managing that. And how as the new Addington bid, you're probably doing similar things to Simon, and what the challenges are for your businesses in that area.
Yes, I think it's useful to mention at this stage that we're actually the smallest bid in the country, and as a consequence have got the smallest amount of funding. We're not as sophisticated as Simon or the Croydon bid. But one thing that has come out of this, it's pulled our business community closer together than ever it has done before. We're actually communicating with one another in a way that we couldn't manage before. And as a consequence, our smaller businesses, we were able to help very, very quickly. We formed immediately, we set up a WhatsApp group, which enabled us to communicate the problems that all the smaller guys were having. And we also, working in conjunction with Croydon Council, the other bids, and indeed yourselves, managed to pull together a whole lot of information and send that out to our members, which was hugely beneficial. We also helped iron out a lot of the nitty-gritty little silly things in the loan applications that we had to do through the council, and that was of great help to a lot of my small members. Getting them up and running. There's lots of things we'd love to do, like Simon, but we don't have the facilities to do it. But by talking and communicating with yourselves, it's helped us. Your information you provide on a daily basis, we give that to our members so that they're informed. On a personal basis, I've been open ever since the whole process started. It's quite traumatic. We greatly reduced our opening hours. My staff have been, given my age, I can't work there. I'm working remotely. I'm doing everything behind the scenes, keeping it together. But as a small business, we have seen quite a large increase in the footfall, which has put a lot of pressure on the staff. So communicating with my staff is exceptionally important. And as it says, staff are your biggest single asset. And if you don't keep them on board at all stages, we're working, so I can communicate with them. And I do so every day. In fact, I drive them nuts sometimes because I speak to them, they think, too often to make sure they're happy. But they're controlling my business in my absence. And not only are they controlling the business, they are controlling the customers who are coming into the business. And that, believe me, is very, very important. We make sure that they're socially distancing all the time. Sadly, you'll get those people who ignore it. And that is a reality in retail. The reality is there, and you have to take charge. You have to be in control. And staff have come right up to the mark to do that, surprisingly so. And that goes, we only employ 5 people. And that includes my part-time staff. They're all coming up to do what
which is a
required.
bit of a different skill set for many. Maybe having to be sort of a bit more stern and
Yes.
authoritative with a customer in the right way is, I guess,
Right way, of course, yes.
it's a skill that many people are going to have to learn because
Yes.
as more shops open, you're right, not everyone is going to be adhering to the rules. That puts an additional strain on the business, doesn't it, to manage that customer flow?
It is, and you have to recognise that because it is a strain. It's not everybody, it's not all customers doing this. 95% of customers are very good, as indeed in most businesses. It's the very small minority who create the problems. And it is the small minority that can put pressure onto the staff who are working in these environments. First and foremost, they've got to look after their own health and well-being, and in so doing, they're looking after the community at the same time.
So, I mean, again, as we all look at what coming back to business, reopening businesses, that confidence of the staff that the staff have got, that they feel comfortable and confident that they are coming back into a safe place, is going to be paramount. So there's a big requirement on the employer to make sure that's in place. I'm going to come to Rajan. You are an employer. I'm going to ask you first of all about that experience and what you're thinking about, but then also maybe you could just touch upon the insurance world and how that's been affected.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Catherine. Our experience has been quite pleasant. We're a fortunate enough business that we were able to move everybody home. Everybody took their 2 screens, their desktops from the 23rd, and we've all been operating from home now for 7+ weeks. We're lucky we moved to the cloud 4 weeks before the lockdown, and that wasn't planned. That was just something that came about because our server came to the end of life and we decided to go to the cloud. So sometimes, the dominoes fall in the right way. So we've been quite fortunate. We've had a really good experience working from home. The team is very happy. We have a team of 4, including myself, and everybody's getting on with it. Very much like Ken, we're in communication all the time. We use Zoom a lot. We have 2 Zoom meetings a week. One is a business one is a Friday raise a glass one. So yeah, just communicating with our team. But equally important, the same word that Simon and Ken use, communicating with our clients. And we are using the phone, and we're using things like FaceTime and Zoom to speak to as many of our clients as we can, because this is the time that people want to be reassured that you are there and you're not shy and you are available. So as a business, very fortunate, and I genuinely feel fortunate that we can trade and we can trade from home. The next step from what Mr. Prime Minister said on Sunday, and we're in a serviced office. There are 4 other businesses in our actual office. They've been in communication with us to say, Rajan, what is your business plan about coming back? Because they want to know about people moving around in the corridor, social distancing. The toilets are on our floor, the first floor, the gents and the ladies. So they're used, quite a lot. So as a business, we're quite happy to continue working from home because we can. I think the other businesses in our office block obviously do want to move back. And talking to different business owners, I talked to a dry cleaning business, which is in Purley, Simon. They started opening last week, 3 hours a day, and they had 3 customers in the whole week. And I would come back to, I think something you picked up on, Catherine, is about communicating with your customers that you're now open. And she has a Chinese takeaway next to her. And I said, why don't you give her leaflets to the Chinese takeaway that every time they deliver locally, that leaflet goes out with that takeaway and say, we're open now. And it's about, thinking outside the box a little bit to inform your client base that you are open for business. So whether you're using a website, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be, or just going back to basics and printing an A5 leaflet and putting it through a letterbox. Can't beat a leaflet,
I say. You can't beat a leaflet through a letterbox.
And we're talking to all sorts of businesses. We've got businesses from care homes that have lost 3 times the number of elderly that they would normally in that time frame. So, they're going through some really stressful, difficult times.
Yeah.
To people like, Peter, who are in the hospitality trade. We've got clients who've got sandwich shops in the city who have got no relief from their landlords to the high rents and the business rates they're paying. And because of their rentable value, they've received no grants because their rateable value is over 51,000. And they've seen their income go to 0 overnight, and they're deciding what their future is now. So, it's quite humbling when you're talking to business owners on a daily basis, which I am, and listening to different stories. And I talked to another client yesterday. They've got a hair salon, and he was so upbeat. He's ordered PPE equipment, and they're getting ready now, listening to what the Prime Minister said on Sunday. They employ 4 people. They do facial treatments and hair. And he said, we can't wait. We're all prepared. We're ready. They're putting tapes down, in the shop for social distancing. So I think it's a state of mind. It's how positive you want to be, and whether you come back with a bounce, like the bounce back loans, if you want to call that, or whether, it's a personal matter. It depends what business you're in, I think. Yeah. And I think if you are a business owner, obviously you want to get back up there and start moving your business forward. So.
Okay. That's great. I'm going to come back to you on the insurance question, but I just want to bring Peter in because everything that Rajan says, I'm sure, is ringing true with you. You are in undoubtedly the worst hit sector in terms of retail hospitality. You've been doing an amazing job. Big shout out for your Instagram videos. If those of you that haven't seen Peter become an amazing TV chef, showing us how to make pasta and do some of his wonderful dishes at home, I would urge you to take a look. They've been fantastic. But tell us a bit about your experience and what you're thinking about in terms of moving forward, Peter.
Yeah, well, I mean, regards to the recipes, I've got to do something, haven't I? You know, moving forward, yeah, I mean, this is obviously a great challenge for everyone in the hospitality now. The only option that our industry has at the moment is the delivery takeaway service, from a point of view of getting some money back into our accounts. Besides from that, up to that point, you know, I think most of us have touched on it, the communication has been vital. I think the communication with our staff to, you know, reassure them, let them know, you know, what the situation is, what's going to happen going forward, as much as we can tell them, because a lot of us, you know, are very unsure about that as well. And also, you know, from a personal point of view in the restaurant quarter, just sort of speaking to some of the traders down there, and Simon touched on it as well, that a lot of people were a little bit unsure about, you know, the grants, and I spoke to a couple of people that were convinced you had to pay the grant back. So silly little things like that with the communication with them, I think, has helped. And I think it's really important that, you know, if we're in a business area with local businesses, is, you know, to keep in touch. You know, you don't have to be part of the South Croydon Business Association or a bid. You know, it would be great for local businesses just to sort of phone their neighbours, see what's happening, see if they can, you know, convey any good information to them with what's going on. Little thing that I heard of from one of my colleagues with a restaurant was who really struggled with the initial loan from the government and had to go through reams of paperwork, and I'm sure Steve's very aware of how complicated that is as well. They applied for the bounce back loan, I think about 7 days ago, got it agreed 3 days ago, and got it in their bank yesterday. So I think that's going to be a really helpful one for businesses. The grant has been a lifeline for a lot of us, and I know from my personal point of view it has. You know, it's allowed me to pay off all my suppliers, but after that point, as Arjun said, we're at zero income. So what's next? What's next for me personally is we're going to restart the takeaway and delivery service. We can't take on all our staff for that. You know, I've got 20 odd staff, and probably I'm going to need sort of 3, 4 of us to do this service. So kind of got to be fair to our staff to rotate them around. So, you know, there's no sort of animosity. The people are out there working, and the others are sitting at home as well, still earning on their furlough. So there's a lot of these challenges going forward.
It's quite challenging currently, isn't it, because of the rules of furlough? Because you can take them on and off furlough now, but obviously we're all waiting to hear what the changes to furlough are going to mean. We know that it's been extended through June to July in its current form, but that from August there is going to be some additional contribution that employers are going to need to make. But there is also the option to bring people back part-time. I guess we're all just holding our breath a bit, waiting to see what that would mean.
Yeah, we need the clarity on that. And I think the government recognised that, you know, hospitality, obviously, you know, is my field, that when we come back, if we're going to have to somehow work out a social distancing, we're not going to be able to keep on all our staff. If my restaurant goes down to a third capacity, most of them are going to have to come back part-time, and a lot of them won't be able to come back. So we've got this challenge.
You've started to give some thought to what coming back might look like. What is your current thought about when you might be thinking you could come back?
Yeah, I mean, the initial thing is the safety of all my staff, and obviously we start the delivery with the drivers coming in and out. So, you know, we've ordered all our PPE for staff. We've set up a risk assessment now to make everyone very aware of, you know, how we have to try and social distance and, you know, keep the hygiene obviously paramount as usual with a restaurant, and all these kind of things. Now, going forward, looking forward to actually when the restaurant might open, I think that would be quite challenging. But I think there are ways around it. You know, I've given it a lot of thought, and I'm sure a lot of people have as well. You know, with that distance between tables, with controlling who's coming in and out at certain times, with not letting people congregate at bars. You know, it's going to be quite a challenge. But I think there is a way forward with that. And if you've already got a delivery or takeaway service going on at the same time, then that additional income may be a lifeline for restaurants and hospitality. I do fear, though, for so many people that were already sort of just holding on before this crisis, how they're going to be supported in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, how many people make it through and out the other side, and what impact it's going to have on our high streets, and in particular, I guess, the restaurant quarter. We have just launched our weekly confidence poll. We've been doing this to try and ascertain how people are feeling about the current situation. How confident are you about your business? And it's interesting to track how that's changing. When we first started, there was, as you would expect, a fairly low confidence level. It did peak, I think, last week, if not the week before, to feeling much more confident. As time rolls on, it's interesting to see how that is progressing. So just to encourage you all just to answer that poll. Quick question for you, Peter, from Rob Witt, who's with us this morning. Rob is asking, he hasn't got Instagram, so how can he look at what other channels, social media channels, are your wonderful recipes on? Quick shout out for that.
Okay, how does he look onto Instagram?
No, can he view your recipes anywhere other than Instagram?
Yeah, he can look at it on YouTube, Facebook.
Right.
I think there's some on Twitter as well. And I think also, going back to Instagram as well, I think it's really important that a lot of businesses, as they have adopted now, have really embraced more online trading, more online presence, and, getting your name out there and thinking of sort of, clever ways to try and help your business for the future, whether it's just to sort of keep your name out there and keep people engaged, or finding ways to communicate, sell your product, but in a different way to they've been used to. So I think it's a real game changer in that way for a lot of businesses on the social.
It certainly has made people realise that actually those people that maybe had a website that was just there because it needed to be, perhaps wasn't as up to date as it should be. That's really brought that to the fore, as has all, just these Zoom meetings and webinars have really taken over in terms of business meetings. Rajan, I want to come to you and just ask you about, what's the scenario for businesses who have insurance issues at the moment? How is that?
I made a list. There's probably 5 things I would say to business owners with business insurance. First of all, a lot of the main insurers allowed your business to be unoccupied for 90 days. Most insurance policies will allow your premises to be unoccupied, not trading, for up to 30 days before you have to inform the insurer, and then they put restricted terms. But a lot of the larger insurers like AXA and Allianz and Zurich extended that to 90 days. So be aware that 90 days will be coming to an end around the 23rd of June. So if you have a business premises that is going to be unoccupied, not trading for past that date, make sure you are fully aware of the terms of your policy and whether you need to let your insurer know. And if they apply restricted terms, then make sure what that means to your business and about the protection around it. Point 2, again, if you are working from home, make sure you've told the insurer if you've taken computers or laptops or mobiles home or given it to your teams, make sure that they are insured away from the office. Because often people forget to do that. It's like when you have home insurance, people don't have away from home cover. So just be aware of that. If you are planning to go back and start using your business premises again, maybe it'd be a good time before you get into the business, just to do a really good stock take about the covers you've got, your contents, your tenants improvements, your stock. Have a really good look at your policy. A lot of our clients are taking the time now. They're at home. They're really, going through their policies, box by box and coming back and saying, oh, Rajan, did I inform you of that? Or I need to increase that or decrease that. So now's a really, really good time to look at your policy really carefully and make sure you are covered correctly. Because at the end of the day, an insurance broker and an insurer can only do on the instructions the client gives them. So it is your duty to make sure you give us the right information. Number 4 is a really important one. If you've got a renewal coming up now, or if you've passed a renewal in the last couple of weeks, be aware that almost every single insurer now is applying an exclusion for coronavirus going forward on the renewal date. So whether it's a property or a restaurant like Peter or an office like me, or a marketing agency like you in your office insurance, you will see that your renewal terms will have a coronavirus exclusion on it. In plain English, what that means is that irrespective of what your policy, whether it covered you for a notifiable disease or not in the past, going forward, there's a clear exclusion now. So make sure you understand that, speak to your broker, your insurer, see if it's on that. 99% of the time it is going to be on there. That is a really important thing that you need to consider, especially where the government is talking about maybe future outbreaks. Maybe we get another peak in the virus coming back. So make sure you understand your insurance and make sure you understand what this exclusion means for your business. Really, really important that you get your head around that. So be aware of that. Number 5, and really the last one, is be careful before you think of cancelling your policy. A lot of, we've had some clients who said, Rajan, I'm not operating. I don't need to have insurance. Why would I need it? If you have some sort of business premises, be aware that your policy protects you more than just against the virus. Protects you against theft or fire. It protects you against the number 1 damage causer in the United Kingdom, which is water. Water damage claims are the number 1 claims in the United Kingdom. So be aware that your business policy, if it protects property, it covers you against a number of things. And I'm on a group called the CR10 group, which is a bunch of local Croydon brokers. And we had a power session just on Monday. And on there, some of the brokers were saying that they're seeing a little spike in claims coming through for theft claims and things like that. So just be mindful and have a deep breath, have a really good think about your insurance. And before you just cancel because you're thinking you're not going to be opening or something, just take a deep breath, have a conversation with your broker or your insurer just to understand what your policy is actually doing for you. Don't just have blinkers thinking, oh, it doesn't cover coronavirus, I don't want it. So those would be my 5 tips.
That's really helpful. Interestingly enough, we got a message from our landlord to say that there had been a flood from the office above us that has come down into our kitchen. So we dispatched somebody off this week to take a look at that and assess the damage. But you're right, you can't just shut the doors and ignore it. I think, Peter, you said you went back in this week to start to set it up and check it over. I do have a question that's come in with regards to insurance and being unoccupied. The question is, if I'm going back periodically to check security, pick up answer phone messages, post, etc., and so i.e. they are spending some time there, but they're not actually trading. He says, does my 30/90, I don't know what that is, start again from them, or is it only when trading?
I think insurers are going to be flexible on that. So it's a good question. I do the same. So I go in once a week, check the post, water my plants. I make sure basically that the office is fine, and I come back. I think you'll find that, insurers will take a more relaxed view on that, but they may still consider that it's not trading. But you would have to check with your insurer. Every insurer will take a slightly different stance on it. Trading would mean that you are actually trading on a regular basis, not just going in for a couple of hours once a week. Where you have an non-occupancy clause, where insurers would ask you to maybe go back every 7 days or 14 days to check your premises. Make sure it's secure, you haven't had any incidents, you haven't had any attempted thefts or break-in or escape of water. So just check your wording, check with your broker, check with your insurer, where you stand on that. But my understanding is that your 90 days or 30 days wouldn't start every time you popped in for 3 hours. That's my understanding. But just check with your own insurer and understand what that is.
Just a question from me on that subject of coronavirus, and we go back to business, or if you're in Peter's case, you're a restaurant and you go back to business, and there is another outbreak. Is there, what is the situation with maybe a customer making a claim to say that because Peter didn't social distance properly, they've contracted it? Is that something that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, this is, I mean, we would need a completely separate, session around this whole topic around it. There's so much.
Yeah.
All I can say to you is that the FCA, the governing body that regulates us, the Financial Conduct Authority, has looked at, I believe about 150 different policy wordings from different insurers. They have found some in there that they believe should be paying and should be covered. They're taking some advice on that. And as brokers, we've been told not to really comment on anything until we understand what is happening and what insurers are going to be doing. But all I would say to you is that every policy is slightly different. The wording is slightly different. You may have a clear exclusion, or you may have a slight gray area, or you may have wording that says, actually, I am covered. And again, going back to my insurance broker group that we spoke to, on there was a couple of brokers who said, they've made some claims and they've already been paid for that, for business interruption and that. We've got 1 or 2 claims going in as well. But it's a really big area, and different businesses, different policy wordings.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one to answer, I'll be honest, Catherine. I can't give you 5 tips about what to do.
No. So what I'm going to suggest, and you might not thank me for this, is that you are the man to talk to. And I'm sure you have.
Going back to what Peter said, I've been regularly contacting, not just clients, but businesses locally. We've got an email group of, clients and businesses in Croydon. And very similar to what Peter said, I came across, we were fortunate. We got our business grant very early on from Croydon Council, a big tick and a big thank you to them from us as a business. But what I found was there were businesses that we knew in Croydon weren't even aware that they could apply.
Yeah.
They didn't even know that they could apply.
Yeah.
So I would say keep talking. But yeah, happy to for anybody, if they want to call, if they want to chat with me.
Actually, you pop your details into the chat, Raj, and the panelists can make contact. I'm going to invite Simon into the conversation. We've had a question that I think you'd like to answer live. It's coming from Gordon Bull, who is asking, he's picking up on Peter's point about talking to business neighbours. He's saying that in his experiences, business owners are quite reluctant to talk to each other, particularly around challenges. I guess we're all a bit sort of British upper lip. We're all very good and used to saying, oh, everything's fine, everything's wonderful, we're doing great, even if actually we're scrabbling hard to make a go of things. Simon, you wanted to come in on that point.
Yes, no, thank you there, Catherine. So Gordon, actually, conversely to what Catherine was saying, I'd say that a lot of the time is that the businesses have been struggling over the past few years. It is a very, very tough environment, and it's enough for them to just manage their businesses going forward, let alone speaking to their neighbours and showing any weakness, etc. And so there's a bit of stiff upper lip, but there's also a bit of, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? What this has shown, and as much as Ken has shown as well, we set up a WhatsApp group as well, and it has been phenomenal. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's actually really galvanised the community much more than I could ever imagine. We daily go knocking on businesses pre-COVID, trying to engage with people, say, how can we help you and support you? This has done more to advance that cause than we could have ever managed beforehand. And so what it has done is, if a person has got an issue such as we can't get this grant application, we've got an issue here, they are raising their hands, and then you find somebody else has got it, and then somebody else has got it. And then we, as I mentioned before, are able to go to Cabinet, Croydon Cabinet on Monday with almost a class action of we need support here. And so engaging with people, and there's some great ideas about putting leaflets into the takeaway vans and stuff like that. So if we can communicate and talk with people much more. And the funny thing was our WhatsApp group we'd have people come on, and you'll just see their name at the top. It won't show what business it is. And a couple of times it's been, so who are you? And it's kind of, well, we're the restaurant that's been opposite you for the past 15 years. And this thing has really pushed people forward into speaking to each other, engaging with each other, and sharing these issues. So if your group doesn't have one, make sure you get everyone shared into a WhatsApp group. Can't recommend them highly enough. And businesses that work together, even pre-COVID, will thrive together afterwards, such as if you've got a cafe next to a hairdresser's, if the hairdresser can offer a 10% discount to the cafe, we're all working together to support our community.
And I think that is proven, and the whole community thing is proven time and time again. that is what's happening now. People are talking much more openly. And I think the point about you don't need a business improvement district to make that happen. You don't even need a business association. What you probably need is a couple of people within that business district who's prepared to step forward and make that sort of thing happen. We are running a second poll, so I'd ask you all to just let us know what things you've adopted. And I'm going to go to Ken, who wants to come in on this subject. Hi, Ken.
Yes, hi. It's so interesting what Simon says. I thoroughly agree with absolutely everything he said. I've been trading for 40 years, and I'm speaking to people who've never spoken to me. Not because I don't want to, but because we're all busy running our own businesses, and that's the challenge. You're running your own business. You haven't got the time, the energy to go out and start investigating other people or communicating with them, apart from perhaps your next door neighbour. This has galvanized our business community like nothing else has done before. And I'm actually communicating with people who previously refused, and I mean refused to communicate because they didn't see the benefits. Now they genuinely do see the benefit. So as a bid, we set up our own group, our own WhatsApp group, but it doesn't have to be a bid, as Simon says. If you're a group of traders who want to pull together, just get a WhatsApp group. It works tremendously well. And pulling everybody together, because we're all in it together.
Absolutely. And I think as we come out of lockdown into the new normal, actually we're all going to need to do this.
We need everybody on board. We're going to lose some people, obviously, but we've got to have as many people on board as possible. The high street has been going through tremendous downturn over the last 2 decades, if not longer. And this may well be an opportunity to galvanize our local communities and pull our local customers back to our local businesses.
And definitely that local customer point, I think, is really valid, because actually never has there been an opportunity more for Croydon to actually work together to encourage Croydon people to support Croydon business at a time. And that applies to jobs as well. Yes. Let's face it, we're all going to need, we're not going to want to be travelling distances. We want to be able to work locally. We want to be able to shop locally. So in terms of supporting our local communities, that's got to be paramount. I'm going to bring Steve in. Steve, I know that pre-COVID, you have been for some time facilitating, business networking events as a bank. The role that Metro Bank plays as a voice in the community, bringing people together. Have you seen an increase in that, and are you planning to carry on doing that type of activity?
Well, in terms of what we used to do or what we're doing? Yeah,
just generally, how are you finding that whole community spirit from your banking customers' point of view?
Well, we're talking to people as they're coming in, but obviously networking has been completely kind of wiped out. One of the things that has been useful and just to help keep everyone sane is we've done quite a few small groups on Zoom with 6-8 people, and it is good to just talk and just have a chat about experiences and what's going on. I would love to get back to running the professionals dues and getting back to Peter's restaurant and having the networking lunches and the networking events that we have in store. Be lovely to have to get back to that, but I just don't think we'll see that this year. And I do think we do need to be more creative. I don't know if anyone has had any experience of doing larger groups, large networking things on Zoom. I'm not convinced that they're a great form, but I think to do set up smaller, more kind of focused groups. I've been doing a lot of stuff with accountants because they've got customers that have got an interest in what the banks are doing and vice versa. And I do think you can, with all of our networks, it's quite easy to set something up with 8-10 people once a week, twice a week, just to keep touching base with everyone, find out what the local opinion is, and if there's anything else that we can do to help each other's sectors or businesses out, and just promote the community spirit that we've worked so hard to form over the last sort of decade.
I'm going to give a shout out to the Big Breakfast, which is the speed networking event that we've run for many, many years, traditionally in IKEA. We have just relaunched that as an online platform. We've had 2 of them. It's gone tremendously well. I'd encourage you all, just go to the Big Breakfast website. They're running monthly. They're bringing sort of 25 people together in a quick, sharp way of talking to each other again. And we have had really positive feedback. So it is possible. Anybody can set that up in your high street, in whatever, not difficult to do. But it is working. And let's face it, it is going to be our only way to network for the foreseeable future. So we have all had to embrace that. A last question probably this morning is from someone who's asking a similar question, really, asking what is the best way to focus on building connections going forward. They're trying to provide a pro bono service. I guess that's what we're all trying to do here this morning. We're trying to do our bit to help others and promote ourselves and our brands at the same time. But we'd like to understand how to get in touch with people now that we cannot knock on doors. Well, I'm going to start off by saying, well, you can still put a leaflet through their door. Simon, I'm going to bring you in because you're a marketing expert. You've already said it, but obviously we can be looking at our online platforms.
Absolutely. And this is a time where we've been banging this gong for a long time, but your website and your email contact database or your contact database are essentially as important as your current contacts and your bricks and mortar business. It's something that's going to go more and more. It's something that you own. It's one of the few things that you own online. So you don't own Facebook, you don't own these other areas. Those are good communication channels to go through. So really focus on building up your contact email database. So if you can offer something onto your website that is engaging, useful, a little bit of free information, a downloadable bit of content, a recipe, a video tutorial or something like that, that engage with the people just so they can share the email address. Emails are now the new currency online. Really, they are the most important thing that you can have, that you can contact people. Once you've got that, you can even start recognizing when people visit your website, they don't engage with you. You can assign that email address to an IP address and you can really work out who's coming, who's becoming engaged with you, what posts they've seen, social posts, as well as your blogs and emails. So it's as much as you can do stuff online that allows you to get the email addresses with their permission, obviously GDPR, etc., so that you can engage them with authentic, good quality content to go out with people.
Right. Thank you very much. I'm conscious that we are quickly running out of time. I'm going to come to the rest of you just for a final word. But before I do that, I just want to give a shout out to some of the chat that's going on this morning. Firstly, to Kirk Ritchie, Reach PLC, publishers of Croydon Advertiser, a very traditional form of communication. It's been around for goodness knows how many hundreds of years. What he's basically saying is, do bear in mind that there is that platform and they're trying to do what they can to support people, both online and obviously in print. Also got a shout out to Sky, who've released an opportunity for 100 SMEs to apply for a free targeted TV ad to the value of 10k. In the chat, there is the link for how you can apply for that free TV promotional campaign. And also to a lady called Kerry. Kerry is a risk assessor, can help with risk assessments, method statements. She's recently done an office and a cafe in Cheam Park. She's next chief nurse and fully aware of infection prevention and control. And she's put in her website address, and maybe, Kerry, we can get you on a future webinar to give your advice to a wider group of people. That would be great. So you also have in your chat the fact that the next big breakfast on here on this platform, Zoom, is on the 21st of May. You can sign up to that. So just coming back to our panelists for a final few words, as we look ahead to entering a new world, really, coming out of lockdown, what's your sort of one key nugget that you might want to just leave with people, starting with you, Ken?
Cautious optimism. Don't be frightened of the future. We're still going to be here, but it's think outside the box as well, but do it cautiously.
Great, thank you. Steve, thoughts from you?
Yeah, really, just communicate. Don't be afraid to speak to people. I think the worst thing that people can do now is to pretend there's not a problem, bury their heads in the sand. It's not going to get any better. So whether it's a financial issue, an insurance issue, reach out, speak to people. There are a lot of people out there that can talk. I would happily talk to anyone on any financial issues, business or funding, whether it's metro related or not, just to help the business community. But don't ignore the issues deal with them and communicate with people.
Great, thank you, Rajan. Oh, sorry, hang on. Sorry, Rajan, I for some reason seem to be unable to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself?
There you are.
Great.
Thank you first of all for having me, and thanks to everybody. Been really interesting. My nugget would be similar to what Ken and everybody else has said, is create a group of local businesses on WhatsApp. We have created a group of local insurance brokers since November. We met, now we're meeting on Zoom, and share good tips, share good practice, share your fears and your joys. And I find it great to be able to talk to fellow peers about my profession and what's happening. So I would encourage everybody in every business to do that.
Right, thank you, Simon.
First of all, thank you, Catherine and team at White Label, for a fantastic opportunity this is. Our hat would essentially be, look, focus on your digital. That's what you own. Make sure that you engage, communicate with people, tell them how you're being safe and what offers you've got, and look at improving your digital marketing strategy, which we can obviously help.
Great, thank you. And Peter, the reopening of the restaurant porter at your business, final thoughts on that from you?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a fantastic day when that happens. And I think, any businesses in my industry, we have to be creative. Communication and digital, social media is really important. And with all our businesses, whatever we start to do, we must put health first. Great.
And Peter, just give us a shout out for your takeaway service, which is starting when?
Starting on Tuesday. We'll be doing Tuesday to Sundays, mainly evenings, and then all day Saturday and Sunday. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see if it works out.
Great. Well, I encourage everybody to get your orders in to support Peter in that new venture. As a final thought, we've had a sort of more of a comment, really, bit of a question from Rob Witt. And I think it's a good way to end, because he is suggesting that there's been a lot of discussion on this website about the need to communicate more. And his thought is that, do we all agree that maybe the failure in globalism means that right now where we are, this might actually mean that our high streets can almost rise from the ashes, that actually this is an opportunity. So I guess taking that positive note that Ken made, that out of every crisis perhaps comes an opportunity, and more long term we might look back and say that actually this has encouraged that local community feel once again. I certainly hope that's the case, and I guess the message from us here at White Label is, let's continue to work together to try and make that happen for Croydon, and share a sort of a confident Croydon message, because that's going to be an important thing moving forward, that our local people feel confident that businesses as a local authority and working together as a collective, we all share that confident message. So on that note, I'm going to finish for this morning. Next week, we're going to be tackling the subject of starting a business in the current climate. Many people might think that starting a business in a crisis is not a good idea. There are lots of reasons why it might be a good idea, and we've got certainly an expert joining us amongst some other local people. We've invited Emma Jones, MBE, who is the founder of Enterprise Nation, to join us, and she is going to be coming in talking about her experience, but also what she's finding at the moment out there in the wider business community. So that's 10 o'clock here next week, talking about starting a business. Thank you once again to everybody for taking part, for giving up your time, for doing your bit, which is fantastic. And thank you to all of those of you that have taken part by watching. This video, along with all the others in the series, is available on the White Label YouTube channel. But for now, have a good Wednesday, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Catherine.